Hey everybody, this is the Metal Toys DZ Top D slider, and this one is made out of PEEK material, PEEK, and this is my second review. The first review I decided to take down. I was a little too unfair, I think, with that. Didn't give it enough time, and I've had a chance to talk with a few people, and more time with it in general. I do like it. There's a few little things that I don't like about it, but they're not deal breakers. So let's give this thing a fair shot. Please join me. So, the interesting thing about this one, in comparison to the original deep fried dough stick, they're both identical in size and shape, but the function's a little bit different. The Top D in stainless only does this, whereas the Top D in PEEK does that. But it also, I'm a little out of practice. Also does this. Whoops. You got a zipper function. I recently just put this back together again, and I've only put a very small amount of time into practicing with it again, and it's a little bit tricky to get used to. I guess we call that the zipper function. Generally speaking, people call it the zipper function. So that was added, I think, in a later version of this. I think it was a stainless steel Zerk combination that first introduced the zipper. So after that, I think it became available in a couple other versions, but it was only in PEEK. It's only available like this. Now I had read in a post from them, I think one point in time, somebody asked why won't you make this in PEI or Ultim, and they said its PEI is too rigid. And I can imagine that it would be probably likely to crack when things happen in here, when this gets twisted where it's not supposed to be, which is one of the little things that kind of bug me a little bit about this, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Otherwise, like I said, I've had some time. I've talked with some people, and they said, well, did you increase the springs? Did you double up the springs? Try that. And I did that, and that worked magic. And then, as I was looking at this just maybe 2 nights ago, I didn't realize it, but you know, on the stainless steel one, when it arrives to you, there's a plastic film adhered to this surface and this surface, and I took that off right away because I figured it's going to get gummed up and come off eventually anyhow, and I like things to be raw stainless steel if possible, and I didn't think it was going to be a problem. It wasn't. It's not a problem. They're wearing. You can see that those surfaces are wearing a little bit. Got some pretty good circular marks here from the rotation of these two balls. But other than that, it's wearing pretty well. It's not sticky. It's not causing any troubles. And so when this came, it also had a protective, thin, clear plastic piece adhered to both surfaces. And I must have removed it from one, but not the other, because I found, you know, I was looking, and it's like I said, it was just a couple nights ago, I was looking at it in the reflection, and I saw it, and I was like, oh, I didn't realize that was on there. I took that off, and that changed things dramatically for me. There, I just demonstrated something that bugs me. We'll talk about that later. But I think the recommended advice of doubling up the springs, which is what I did for these two balls here. They're both conical, and I just doubled them up so they're both inside of each other, sort of both pointing in the same direction. And that stiffened those up quite a bit, made this much more made it provide much more feedback and guided it better. It was a little too loose before, and that was bugging me. Yeah, other than that, I do enjoy it. I always forget how to get it going. Oh, there we go. Okay, so what I wanted to do though is talk about and compare the internals here a little bit. One of the things that bothered me was that this thing is supposed to only turn when it's fully extended out this direction or out this direction. That is when it is supposed to turn. Okay, but it can in fact turn at any point along that path, which the stainless steel one won't do. I'll show you more clearly why in a minute. But this does. And I think this could have been avoided. It's not a big deal. And I said, you get out here to the end, that's where it's supposed to rotate. And it does that with the least amount of resistance. But if I just back it up a couple clicks, I can still get it to rotate. It's just a little bit stiffer. And that worries me. It concerns me a little bit about the longevity of this thing and how it's going to hold up. And how people use it whenever they get it and they don't know any better. Because the first thing I did when I handed this to one of my engineer friends at work, one of the brighter engineers I might add, I said, here, try it out. I said, you know, it does this. I showed him, I demonstrated it first. I said, just don't twist it. If it doesn't feel, if you're encountering too much resistance, I said, don't force it. And I handed it to him, and the first thing he did was go like that. And really, it should not be able to do that. I realize it's capable, but what's happening there is this track right here is expanding and stretching out so that a square peg that rides up and down in that track can squeeze its way around. And as it does that, it does damage, minor damage to that, to the interior walls, the two interior walls of this track, which we'll take a look at. But yeah, it's not a big issue. It hasn't hurt anything yet. And like I said, if you know what you're doing, well, you're not going to do that, are you? So it really shouldn't be an issue. But when you hand it off to somebody, they're likely to twist it in any location. And they might break it on you, you know, I don't know. It's just odd to me that they would release. I mean, I understand people want it in peak, and I guess, you know, like I said, PEI was too brittle, and I could see this area flexing out too much, perhaps, that it would crack somewhere along this edge or this edge. So, I don't know, when they decided that they were going to release this, they must have known, hey, this thing turns in places where it's not really supposed to. You know, that doesn't really match. I'm almost certain. Now, I said I was going to try to get the metal version of this. In other words, the metal version that has the zipper function, whichever version that might be. I think there's a few different versions. But I was going to get that. I just don't want to put the money into it. I've kind of lost the spark in these. I like them, and I'm happy to have them both. But I don't want to buy another one just to find out if they're exactly the same or not. I'm imagining that the metal version of this will not do this movement here, because the metal plate on the bottom would not be able to flex enough for that square peg on the inside to rotate the way that it does. So that's enough about that. Let's compare it to a few things and weigh it, and then we'll take it apart and get into the details. So you've seen it with the other top D. Here is a top B. I have two top Bs. One has a ZZ plate, one has a Z plate. But size-wise, really there's no comparison in length when they're extended. Of course, this one only goes back and forth, and this one does all the other things. And the only other Metal Toys DZ product I have is my Top C. I like that very much. But I stress that everybody loves these and says they're great. But compared to other mechanical coins, this is quite different. It's a very slappy sound. It's not a very crisp click, 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 click. So I do like it very much, but I like some of my mechanical coins a little bit better, size-wise there. Now, peak, my first peak piece, I believe, was this, and this was just called a Xiaopeng. And I don't know, I keep seeing that term when it refers to this particular style, and this style just has a singular dead stop pin that floats in the middle here, and then 2 rows of D10s. 5 clicks. And like I said, I think it's called a Xiaopeng. I'll put that up on the screen there. And I've seen that term, that name, refer to a couple of this different, this style at least. So I'm wondering if that is the name of this style. If anybody knows, let me know in the comments. But Peak is an interesting material. Like PEI or Altum is very rigid and crisp sounding. I didn't bring a piece over with me, but that's not important. This is supposed to be also very, it's an engineering plastic, so to speak. It's very strong, temperature resistant, chemical resistant. I'm no expert. I'm just sort of parroting what I read about, generally speaking, of this and PEI. It definitely has a different sound to it, different feel. I like it. I like it. And I've heard that Peak, P-E-E-K, is actually as expensive as stainless steel. I don't know if that's true or not, but yeah, if you have one of these, and I have one of these in Altum or PEI, same size and shape and everything, but we'll compare these two. The color's just a little bit different. And then the latest Peak piece that I have, again, the color is a little bit lighter. This is a Ding Ding slider from INS Work Store on AliExpress. I've been having good deals with them recently. I didn't really compare these two, did I? These are nice and crisp. Of course, this one's got a nice ding to it as well. But this is a little bit more gravelly. Gravelly is a good term, I think. If you try to count the clicks, it's kind of difficult because just like the top B with the Z plate in it, it's 1.5 clicks, really. I look at it as a 1.5 click slider. And this is kind of the same. It's not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, is it 8? See, it's not easy to tell sometimes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 2, 3, 4, 5. This is getting to be a little ridiculous here. 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm getting between 6 and 7. See, I can't even really tell, and that's a little bit bothersome to me too, because I'm sorry I wasted so much time on that. But part of the thing that I like about these is the rhythm. This is my thing. I usually push it forward and then slide it back. Sometimes I do that. But typically, I've got one of these in my hand and I'm doing this. And there's a rhythm, and you can change what you like all the time. You try to bring it back in a certain number of clicks and then finalize it with a couple clicks. And between your ears and your hands and feeling those things, you can get pretty good at getting it to stop and start exactly where you want it to. So it's a rhythm thing, and I expect the detents to be spaced out equally. And I expect the final click to be the final click and not something like the top B where it's questionable, you know. That's just a little bit annoying. So that's something about this one, I guess. It's another little thing that bugs me. So let's just take a look at some measurements here. I'm getting 68 millimeters by 12, between 12 and 13 millimeters, and then thickness 12 millimeters. For weights, there are no magnets in this. Very, very light, 12 grams. All right. Well, next thing we're going to do is take it apart and talk about that part that rotates that I don't think should, and we'll also compare it with the interior of this one, and I'll show you a dramatic difference in a key piece that I kind of wish they would have mimicked over here. I'm not sure why they didn't, because it would eliminate that. So this requires a T8 Torx bit, and I want to only take apart one side here to show you. Actually, I want to take apart just this side. This side, if you want to see this taken apart the whole way, then I will provide a link in the comments to my original review video of this. That will cover, well, you know what, by God, we'll just take a quick look at it. But this is the side I need to talk about first. I know people don't want to jump back and forth between my old video and my new video, but I'm always tempted to bring up something I've already done rather than do it again. So here is the zipper function. And this screw sits inside of a little, I don't know what you'd call it, sleeve, sort of. And that changes the shape of the shaft down here into a square on the end. And I'll show it to you when we unscrew it here. And that square travels back and forth along this groove. Now, you can already see, if I get it focused in here maybe a little bit better, right along those edges, it's a little bit buggered up. If I can get the light on there just right for you. Just on those inside edges. I'll try to point that out again when we have it apart. But it's right in here, right in here. And I think that's because of twisting it in places where you're not supposed to. Remember, I said you're supposed to bring this all the way out to the end to twist it, because that's where this little round area is. This part's flat, square, that guides the square peg. The square peg gets out to this round hole. It's in the round hole over here right now, and then it can freely spin around. So that's the idea behind it. But the fact that this is peak, which is somewhat flexible but strong, you can see that it'll turn at any point along this track. And of course, the further you get up here to the end, the more force it takes and the more damage it does, or is likely to do. We'll say that it's likely to do, because I haven't broken anything yet. But yeah, it's not supposed to necessarily spin in these locations, but it does. And really, like I said, if you know what you're doing, if you know how this is supposed to be used, then you won't be doing that, and it won't wear down, and it won't be an issue. And I do like this. So yeah, I'm not going to be doing... The only time you'll ever see an advisory from me again is if something is really, really bad, like that little tank track thing that was advertised to come apart into like 70 or 80 pieces, and it was glued shut, and the whole thing was die cast, and pretty bad news all around. So I think that deserved an advisory, but we're going to reserve that for the really bad cases. This did not deserve an advisory, and I don't want to discourage you from getting one. Real quick, we'll take apart the ball and spring side. Whoop. do is lift off the back here carefully, and you'll see springs. The balls are directly underneath there. You can lift the springs out, the balls come out. You can change the ball types. I believe mine came with a couple of different kind of balls. You know what, let's just get them out, at least one of them out. What's in there? And let's see if we can get a rough measurement without the digital calipers. Oh, that's 5 millimeters right on the nose. So it looks like I put in the black silicone. Is it black silicone nitride? I believe that's what it is. And then I put the springs in with the fat side pointing down and the narrower part of the cone pointing up. And I found that was the easiest way to get this thing back together. If you try to do it the other way around, it's really difficult because there's no, on other products, on some of these other products, where the spring meets the other side, sometimes they'll put a little bit of a countersink right here, and that can be really helpful in locating things. And like I said, if you flip these springs around, then the fat end is sticking up, and the fat end wants to stick out over the edge of the circle of the hole that it's in. And unfortunately, when you put this thing back together, when this lid goes back on, I guess it's part of the design, of course, it's not unfortunate, but this might have alleviated it, having these recesses here. What happens is, this flat surface here basically comes in contact with this flat surface when it's all assembled, and that pushes all these springs down. But if you have the springs installed upside down with the fat ends sticking out, the wire sticks out beyond the edge of the hole and gets trapped between this surface and this surface when you put the lid on top, when you put the cover on top and close it up. And it can be real annoying. You'll either get this on and you'll see that it's bulging out because it didn't close properly, or you'll feel the spring snap down into place, and then you'll know it's okay. But that's just a little bit of a advice for you, I guess. Of course, with any plastic, be especially careful with your screws. You don't want to cross thread the existing threads and ruin them. So there, that is how that one works. If I hold it on the right side with the right side facing up, I could use it better. So let's compare this part to the other one. I should say, let's compare, and I'll have to take that one apart again, at least on the one side. No problem. No problemo. So let's get this all set up so they look similar. Okay, so everything looks the same, but if we take these two pieces apart and compare them, there's a pretty big difference. Let me put this off to the side, that'll help clarify things too. So, like I said, this one, this little sleeve right here, get it in focus. This little sleeve right here turns the round screw passes through it and turns it into a square shaft, and that square part right here travels back and forth in this slot. Now, on the stainless steel one, which does not have the zipper function, we have something similar. Whoops. So we've got a screw, and we've got this carriage, we'll call it, but this one's rectangular rather than square. So it has even more of a chance of staying, I could demonstrate better with this one. It will stay in the track without rotating, and I think I would rather have had the peak version with something like this in it instead, so it would be less likely to spin in locations that it's not supposed to spin in. But I think that's enough of an explanation. We don't need to go much deeper than that. Otherwise, they're both pretty interesting. I've been pretty happy with them. Not all of top D stuff is attractive to me. Let's start with the top B. The two top Bs I have. I've grown to like them, but I've never been too thrilled with them. And the only reason I have two is because I, at one point in time, bought the sandwich piece to go between them. You could take two of them and make it into a 3-level slider, but that didn't work really well at all. So I don't like the top B so much. Then the top C is the coin, and I do like that. I think that's their best design. Then top D, this would be their next best design. And then if I can, throw a picture of the top E up here. And I just don't like that because it's too organic. For me, it's too organic looking. Makes me think of an alien egg or something. And then lately, the latest thing I guess would be the top F, which is here. And I just had weird feelings about that one from the beginning, and I noticed they're not selling well, and I see a lot of secondary ones, and I see a lot of people selling them. And I've heard some complaints about how the assembly works. It looks pretty strange to me, and it doesn't look like it works all that great. I'm kind of glad I didn't get involved with it. But see how that works now? Like I showed you before, it's not supposed to rotate except for out here at either end where there's a round place for the square peg to rotate. But again, it will rotate pretty much anywhere along the length, even clear out here almost at the end. That's what scares me the most. And all the time that I'm doing that, I'm kind of buggering up. I can see the plastics kind of getting pushed up here a little bit. But it's holding up. Once again, if you're using this properly, you won't be doing those kind of maneuvers. So I hope this isn't too long. It's probably, Christ, close. It must be at least 20 minutes or something now. But I wanted to give this thing a fair shot, give it a better review. And I think I've done it a fair review. So please let me know if you have any questions in the comments, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks for watching. Bye.